When you're looking at fattening a horse, whether you've bought it from the sales or rescued it or it's come into your care by whatever means, you really need to make their main dietary component hay or grass, because that's kind of what they live on. So we use this lucerne hay as a bit of a fattening agent, I guess, but it's also got pretty high calcium and mineral content, and it's got good protein in it as well for development. But more than that, we use a grassy hay. This is a Rhodes grass, but pasture grass works just fine as well, as long as it's okay for horses. This round bale's all fallen apart because it's a lot softer than the lucerne hay and doesn't tend to hold together as much. But you want a fairly good soft quality grassy hay, because that's got all your minerals and your fibre, and it will help to put weight on a little bit as well. These things are quite high in carbohydrate, the lucerne and the grassy hay, and that's okay because horses generally live on starch anyway. They're generally grazing animals, and they'll graze quite high fibre pastures that have a lot of stored sugars, which is your carbohydrates, and your starches. Well, your starch is a carbohydrate too. And a horse's diet should really be quite high in fibre, but it is going to be, because of that, fairly high in starch as well. And the starch is going to help with weight gain. For the horses that are insulin resistant, the high sugar can be a bit of an issue, and then you may need to look into alternative types of hay, certainly reducing the grain hay feeds. We don't have any grain hay at the moment, but it depends on the season what our lesser quality hay will be. It's usually pasture grass or Rhodes grass, and then our higher quality hays are usually some sort of grain hay or a lucerne hay. We sort of look for something that is quite high protein and higher fat than the grassy hay. And everything that has ever lived contains carbohydrate, fat and protein. So it just depends on the amounts that those things contain as to how nutritious they actually are. So don't get caught up in thinking that grassy hay has no fat or no protein. It certainly does have those things because it's been alive, so it's had to regenerate its cells and it's had to survive, and it needs fat and protein to do that. But it is certainly lower in those things, in those nutrients, than something like a lucerne or a barley hay or something like that. Also with your hays, you do need to be careful with some of the seeds. It's like bearded barley, for example, can be a bit of a problem because the seeds can get stuck in horses' mouths. If you're looking at something like oaten hay, that tends to not get so stuck, and it's just oats really that they're getting out of that if there's seed in it. So that's not such a problem. Next part of feeding a horse that needs some weight on, whether it be young or old or indifferent, is the grain feed that you're going to use. Some people like to go grain free. I like to try and keep away from soy and wheat, as they are quite allergenic and can cause a few problems in the digestive and reproductive systems if they're used too much. That doesn't mean that I've never used them or wouldn't ever use them. It just depends on the circumstances. Sometimes when there's drought, feeds are unavailable and things like that, and then absolutely go ahead and use those things for that time. I've also used mill run and things like that for fussy horses or horses that don't have the facilities to be able to eat more sort of solid foods, because you would wet that food down. So it all depends on the situation. We use this high gain track talk, for some reason I always call it race talk, as our whole grain feed. You can use a pelleted feed that has minerals and things in it. They range in price. This is not a bad price for what it is. It's a fairly low feeding rate and you get the results from this. This should be a very small component of their diet, so we're talking less than 2 kilos a day. And a horse of Faith size that we're going to talk about in a minute requires about 7 to 8 kilos of food a day for the amount of weight gain that she needs. So you're kind of looking at about 1 kilo per, you're looking at 1% of their body weight, sorry, for maintenance. So we're looking at about 2% of her body weight to put on weight. So that's just a bit of a guide to go by for that situation. So it really depends on the horse and where you're living and the conditions that you're in, what you would feed. We choose this feed because it is a complete feed. Also, it's a whole grain and it does not contain soy or wheat. It does contain corn, which can make some horses a little bit silly, but when they're in this condition where we want them to gain weight, silly is not such a major problem. And it contains oats and barley. Here's Brad with the hay we just purchased to replace. I'm sure you noticed that the lucerne hay was getting down a little bit, so we have replaced it with 2 more round bales, and we are looking at getting another couple of round bales of grassy as well. So we want to try and keep them pretty even in supply. And here comes Miss Faith. When you're looking at putting weight on a horse, it's important that you consider 3 things as far as their health goes. They need to have good teeth in order to chew the food, and it's really important that you get someone who knows what they're doing with dental tools. They can keep the horse's mouth open and get right in there and file their teeth back. Faith actually had a few what they call hooks and sharp teeth, so she was unable to chew her food properly. We've had that rectified as soon as we could, and now she's quite able to eat, and she's being very annoying and staying out of the shot. Don't work with kids and animals, don't they say in filming. The next thing to consider when you've considered teeth is worming. We obviously worm horses as soon as they arrive. They're put into a quarantine, which is in the round yard, so they can't touch other horses or get germs on other horses. And it's really important to worm them then and pick up the manure when you do that, so that you're not spreading worms anywhere. We worm them twice in 2 weeks. Actually, we worm them 3 times in 6 weeks. But we make sure that they've been wormed twice before they go in with other horses, and that just keeps the worm burdens down to a minimal. We use ivermectin mostly, but we will change and use a different active ingredient every now and then as well. The other thing to consider on top of worming and on top of teeth is their gut, and making sure the gut is working properly as well, because if you've got a sore gut, you're not going to want to eat as much, and you're not going to be using the food as well, not absorbing those nutrients properly. So we use that feed has a probiotic in it that we use as our grain feed, but we also use Inside Out supplement to help keep the gut healthy so that they're able to put weight on easily. Once you've had your teeth and your worming and your gut considered, it's then a good idea to have their feet done. Usually horses that have sort of been left in paddocks, or that you've bought from the sales, or that you've rescued from who knows where, they don't normally have their feet very well taken care of. And in doing their feet, you can actually improve their well-being so that they're walking better and feeling a lot happier, a lot less pain in themselves. And that can help them put on weight too. So maintaining those 4 things is really important to getting weight on your horse. And Faith has been with us nearly 4 weeks now, and you can see the big difference. I'll try and show a photo of it because she's really not cooperating with staying in a good shot so you can actually see. But there is a major difference in her weight. She was very bony when she arrived, and now she's only got a little bit more to gain before she's at a good weight. So there you go. What do you think, Faith? It's pretty good here. We have another really awesome video to come of Faith's being reunited with her paddock friend that she had for a number of years. So stay tuned for that one, and we'll see you then. Bye.